Oh, I love Anthony Edwards, man. I love him, man. Like, he plays both ways.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to TFD. Appreciate everybody tapping in once again. And today, man, we've got a lot to talk about because things around the league are starting to get really interesting, especially when it comes to one name, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The idea of Giannis possibly ending up with the Minnesota Timberwolves is no longer just some wild internet rumor. It's starting to gain real traction. You've got stories popping up from Bleacher Report, CBS Sports, and then you've got people on ESPN dropping little hints and comments that make you stop and say, okay, maybe there's actually something here. But before we get too deep into Giannis to Minnesota, I want to rewind a little bit and talk about what just went down on the court, because the Timberwolves just picked up another huge win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's the second time Minnesota has beaten OKC this season, and 2 out of 3 overall. And honestly, this one felt different. This one felt like a statement. It wasn't just about hot shooting or one guy going off. It was about identity. It was about defense. It was about physicality. It was about the Timberwolves saying, yeah, we're not just a fun regular season team, we're built for this. Jaden McDaniels was absolutely incredible in this game on both ends of the floor. Defensively, he was everywhere. Passing lanes, on-ball pressure, help side rotations, he did it all. Offensively, he was under control, aggressive when he needed to be, and confident in his spots. And then you've got to give a ton of credit to Dante DiVincenzo as well. His energy, his shooting, his movement without the ball, that stuff matters, especially in games where every possession feels like a grind. Now, on the flip side of that, a lot of people are asking the same question right now. Are the Thunder in trouble? I've seen it everywhere, on Twitter, on YouTube, in my comments. The Thunder lose a game and suddenly everybody's like, yo, what's going on with OKC? And look, I get it. This team started the season looking like a machine. At one point, they were 24-1. People were talking about 70-plus wins, historic pace, all of that. Now, over their last stretch, they've gone about 14-10 in their last 24 games. Still good, still winning, but not dominant in the same way. So what changed? To me, the biggest answer is health, injuries. And if you're a Thunder fan, you're getting a real-time reminder of how hard it is to repeat as champions. There's a reason we don't see back-to-back titles very often. The wear and tear from a finals run, from going deep into June, from playing that kind of intense basketball, it catches up to you. The modern NBA is brutal on the body. You're not just guarding your man in one spot anymore. You're sprinting out to the logo on closeouts. You're switching everything. You're chasing shooters off screens. You're recovering, rotating, sliding, exploding. It's constant strain. So because of that, injuries pop up more than ever. The Thunder have had a ton of guys miss time this season. Jalen Williams, A.J. Mitchell, Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Luguentz Dort, Chet Holmgren. That's basically their entire rotation at different points. When you're missing that many pieces, it adds up. And it shows up most against elite defensive teams like Minnesota. When you play a defense like the Timberwolves, physical, connected, disciplined, you really need your full group of ball handlers and creators. Right now, OKC just doesn't have that. A.J. Mitchell is super important because outside of Shai, he's the guy who can really create off the dribble. Jalen Williams is huge too. He might be listed as a wing, but he runs those bench units. He initiates offense. He keeps the ball moving. Without those guys, everything gets harder. Shai was unbelievable in this game. He finishes with 30 points on around 67% shooting, plus 6 rebounds and 8 assists. But he also had 5 turnovers. And a lot of that is because Minnesota could load up on him. They didn't have to worry as much about secondary creators. They could send extra bodies. They could be more physical. They could press up on passing lanes. And it snowballs. Isaiah Hartenstein being out is hurt too. His screening, his rebounding, his rim protection, that stuff is huge. He came back in limited minutes, but you can tell he's not fully there yet. Alex Caruso still out, Cason Wallace just came back. Aaron Wiggins has missed time. There have been nights where OKC is missing 4 or 5 rotation players. That's not sustainable. Shai can will you to wins. Chet can have big games. Other guys can step up in spots. But doing that consistently when your core isn't healthy, that's a different story. And on top of all that, OKC has also been struggling from 3. That's been an issue going back to last season. Even in the finals run, there were games where they barely hit anything from deep. They won one finals game making like 4 threes. In today's NBA, that's almost unheard of. But they survived because they're so good inside. Shai, Chet, J-Dub, Hartenstein, those guys put pressure on the rim. But when you don't have everyone, and the threes aren't falling, and you're playing a team like Minnesota that's built to turn games into street fights, it gets ugly. Now, let's bring this back to the Timberwolves and Giannis, because that's where this really gets interesting.
All right, y'all. Let's keep this thing rolling, because now we're getting into the part that really matters. Do you actually want to see this happen? And remember, this show is totally interactive, so I'm asking everybody watching right now, North America, worldwide, wherever you're at, do you want to see Giannis Antetokounmpo and Anthony Edwards, Ant-Man himself, team up on the same squad? Would you actually want that duo in Minnesota? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those moves that would completely change the landscape of the league. Now, the reason this is starting to feel real is because the steam behind this trade didn't just pop up overnight. According to the Stein line and Jake Fisher earlier today, this has actually been brewing for a couple of months behind the scenes. League sources are saying that the idea of teaming up with Anthony Edwards holds real appeal for Giannis. And because of that, there have already been some legit back-channel discussions in recent months. Not just noise, not just fans talking. Real conversations that give Minnesota true legitimacy as a potential landing spot, even with all the obvious obstacles that stand in the way. And trust me, there are obstacles. We're going to break all of that down. But first, let me just say this. The last 24 hours around this story have been wild. I've literally had people calling me saying, "Yo, Giannis to the Timberwolves. This is actually picking up serious steam." And when you start hearing the same thing from different places, that's usually a sign that something real is happening. Earlier this morning on ESPN's Get Up, Brian Windhorst made it pretty clear Minnesota isn't just interested in Giannis. Giannis is interested in Minnesota, and that part matters more than people realize. For a trade like this to happen, the star player has to be at least somewhat on board with where he's going. Milwaukee doesn't technically have to send Giannis where he wants, but when you're talking about a franchise icon, a guy who brought you a championship, you try to do right by him on the way out. So if Minnesota is one of Giannis's preferred destinations, that alone gives this story real legs. And it didn't stop there. Later on ESPN, Shams was popping up all over the place with little nuggets of info. Then on NBA Today with Big Perk, when they got to his Big Perk Big List, teams that need Giannis the most, he ran through his top 5 and finished with the Timberwolves. And his point was simple. Pairing Giannis with Anthony Edwards just makes sense. If you want to turn Minnesota into a true, no-doubt championship contender, that's the kind of swing you take. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Sources have said that Giannis has been quietly telling the Bucks for months that he believes the time has come to part ways. That means this isn't just a sudden emotional thing. This has probably been building since the summer. We already heard Knicks rumors back then, and now Minnesota keeps coming up more and more. And when you look at where the Timberwolves are as a team right now, elite defense, young superstar and Anthony Edwards, real identity, you can see why this would appeal to Giannis. This isn't a rebuild. This would be about winning now. Which brings us to the big question. How does Tim Connolly actually pull this off? We all know Tim Connolly is a big game hunter. This is the same guy who went out and got Rudy Gobert when people said it couldn't happen. He's not afraid to take risks, but even for him, this would be the biggest swing yet. The Timberwolves don't have the same stash of first-round picks that a team like Golden State does. So Minnesota would have to get creative. That means real players are going out the door. You're talking about names like Jaden McDaniels, who just had a great game against OKC, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo. Now, you're not giving up all of those guys, but at least 2 of them would probably have to be in the deal. Those players would then have to turn into something Milwaukee actually wants: real value, real picks, real flexibility. On top of that, Minnesota would also have to include young talent, maybe a Rob Dillingham, maybe a Terrence Shannon Jr., maybe a Leonard Miller-type prospect. There's a lot on the table if you're serious about landing a player like Giannis. Let's be clear, this is still a long shot. Nobody's pretending it's easy. Tim Connolly would basically have to bounce this thing off every satellite dish in the league to make it work. But the idea of it, the logic of it, the fit with Ant-Man, that part makes a lot of sense. So yeah, is it risky? Absolutely. Is it complicated? For sure. But is it possible? More than people want to admit. And that's why this story isn't going away. So, I'll ask you again. Do you want to see Giannis and Anthony Edwards on the same team in Minnesota? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear it all.